So my name is, can you hear me well?
Yeah, it works.
Good. So my name is Nitzan Livneh. Maybe I'll also hold it like this. Is it okay?
Yeah, good.
Good. So my name is Nitzan Livneh. I'm the CTO of Heqa-Security, and I'll talk about QKD in general and QKD trends as of today, and I'll also present Heqa-Security and our QKD strategy. But first, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me, and Professor Kim for the introduction. So during my talk, I'll start by talking about the threats over today's encryption. I'll talk about quantum key distribution, or QKD. I'll talk about the company, Heqa-Security, and our products, our QKD solutions. And I'll finish the talk by talking about standardization for QKD. But let's first start with a short introduction about encryption. So we all use encryption through our daily lives all of the time. When we chat with our friends, when we shop online, or just when we pay using credit cards, not through the internet, but just buying in the shop. So all of these communications are being encrypted, and the most basic thing about encryption is the encryption keys. Every two parties, usually called Alice and Bob in our field, every two parties who want to communicate securely need encryption keys. The first encryption key is used to encrypt the message, to encrypt the data, and the second key is used for decryption of the data. So basically, every type of encryption needs encryption keys. So modern encryption uses a scheme called public key cryptography, or PKI. So that's what the internet is based on, both for encryption and authentication. And PKI is based on one-way functions. It means that there is a secret key which is used for decryption, and there is some mathematical functions that generates the encryption key from the decryption key, and then the person who wants to decrypt the data can use the public key for decryption, but only the person who has the encryption key can decrypt the encrypted data later. So the fact that there is a mathematical connection between the encryption and the decryption key means that if there is an attacker who has strong enough compute capabilities or smarter algorithm developers, they can attack the public key in order to get the private key and break the encryption. So as of today, data communication is hard to secure, but in about 5 to 10 years, when quantum computers will have more capabilities, it will become nearly impossible to encrypt data using today's method. So today's traditional encryption methods face growing vulnerabilities from compute power from AI, and in the near future also by quantum computers who will have efficient algorithms to break PKI. So one approach when one wants to prepare for the quantum computer future is to find just better PKI algorithms. It means keeping the same working concept. It means that most of the changes would be in software, and this whole field is called PQC, or post-quantum cryptography. Now the downside or the challenges in PQC are that the software update is non-trivial. It's simple when you want to update your the encryption software on your cell phone, but when it comes to changing the encryption for routers or basically for the backbone of the internet, it becomes a big challenge. Some of the updates will also require hardware update, and the most important thing is PKI doesn't have proven security. Just like today's encryption is not proven to be secure, Diffie-Hellman or RSA, there is no proof for their security. We just rely on the fact that no one published a paper saying that they can break it, so we claim that it's secure. But the security of post-quantum cryptography cannot be proven. So PQC is currently being standardized by the NIST in the United States. They've already recommended a few algorithms for encryption and for digital signature and for authentication, but they also recommend keeping crypto agility. Means that if some vulnerability is found in their algorithms, you will be able to fix it, to replace the algorithm or to add patches. So certification of PQC is an ongoing process. Now, another approach to face the threat is just to use symmetric encryption keys, not asymmetric, just like in PKI, but symmetric encryption keys. It means that the same key is used to encrypt the data and to decrypt the data. So there is no mathematical problem that you can solve that will give you the decryption key. So basically, this kind of communication is considered to be quantum safe or future safe. But the challenge now that people who want to use symmetric encryption face is how to share the encryption keys between both parties. So defense organizations today use fleets of couriers carrying hard drives with encryption keys in order to enable encryption throughout their sites. But for example, if you want to do some shopping on Amazon, you've never met Jeff Bezos, you cannot give him your encryption keys. So a scalable method for distributing symmetric encryption keys is required. So the solution that we're proposing, well, not only us, but the solution that Heqa-Security develops is called quantum key distribution. So this is a method for distributing symmetric encryption keys throughout the telecom network, throughout the optical fiber network. The strength of the security relies on quantum physics or quantum optics, to be more precise, and not on some kind of computational complexity just in the older algorithms. So QKD is proven scientifically to provide unbreakable security. It can also detect eavesdropping over the optical fibers, but the downside is that it requires hardware, and this hardware needs to be installed on each and every communication link. So now I'll talk about what is actually going on in the world today regarding quantum key distribution. So currently the early adopters of QKD are the telcos, such as the telcos in Korea actually, that have already deployed quite a lot of QKD systems in the network. The telcos are responsible for transmitting the data of all of the users and encrypting the data. And for telcos, it can be another revenue option, offering security to their clients. Government and defense agencies many times have their own private optical networks that they can use to encrypt. And these organizations also face state-grade attackers, which means that they need to protect their data much more than just us, the people. Data centers are responsible for keeping everyone's data, and they use QKD in order to protect lines getting from the customer's site to the data center and between data centers. The financial sector also is exploring QKD. Critical infrastructure, the same as government agencies, they could face, for example, power plants or water treatment facilities, they could face state-grade attackers, so they need to keep their data and sites safe. And healthcare is also very much interested in it, as they need to keep the medical records for many years from now. And if someone, for example, harvests the data today, in 20 years, they could probably decrypt the data that is collected today if they use PKI. By using symmetric encryption, the data is secured for many years. Well, this slide is actually a bit more advanced slide, but nevertheless, there are quite a lot of QKD protocols. So we say QKDs if there is one method called QKD, but there are quite a lot of protocols. The first and most mature and most common protocol is the BB84 protocol, which doesn't use entanglement. There are other protocols that use entanglement, for example, the E91 protocol, and there are also, and it's okay, so these protocols are from 1984, 1991, they are mature protocols, and there are already QKD companies that use these protocols, especially the BB84, but there are also more advanced protocols that are now either in the academy or making the first steps out of the academy, called device-independent QKD. If standard QKD secures the communication line, measurement device or device-independent QKD means that also the devices themselves are quantum secure. So the field of QKD is on an ongoing development and constantly improves. So that's about the protocols. Now about the infrastructure. Today, most of the QKD links that are using dark fibers. It means having a dedicated fiber only for the quantum information, only for the single photons that are used to generate the encryption keys. So it can provide the longest communication range. It is very simple to install and manage. However, the infrastructure is expensive. Having a fiber only for QKD is expensive. So another way to deploy QKD is to multiplex the quantum channel, the single photons, together with the DWDM channels. At Heqa-Security, we think that most of the QKD systems in the future will be multiplexed with the DWDM. As of today, it's less common. The range is limited for multiplexing. It requires more advanced management for the optical network, but this is the cost-effective solution. Now, in order to connect different regions or to bypass areas where optical fibers are not deployed, one can also use satellite QKD. So we used to think of satellite communication as radio communication, but here we're talking about optical satellites, which means that there is a ground station with a telescope, and on the satellite there is another telescope, and these telescopes just form an optical link and transmit the single photons through space and the atmosphere. So having QKD satellites or a QKD satellite network enables a connected network of all of the ground stations. So it might sound a bit like science fiction. Nevertheless, in China, they already have quite a few of these satellites and ground stations, and it's a solution that works. And there are worldwide efforts in order to develop this worldwide coverage of QKD satellites. So all in all, in the world, there are many thousands of optical fibers protected, of kilometers of optical fibers protected by QKD. The leader, as of today, is China. They have more than 10,000 kilometers of connected sites using both fiber and satellite QKD. In South Korea, you have the second largest network in the world, covering more than 1,000 kilometers and already commercial. Other examples are Singapore. They will have a national QKD grid by 2026, and the European Union has announced a few years ago the EuroQCI project, in which each and every country throughout the European Union is deploying a local QKD network. And at the second step, all of these local networks will be connected to a pan-European QKD network, which will be backed also by QKD satellites. So in a few years, as we see it, the European Union will be will have the largest QKD network in the world. In the USA, the Department of Energy is active about QKD, and also other organizations in the private sector. In the UK, there is a network in the area of London, and in Israel, we're also deploying a nationwide QKD network. But there are more and more initiatives worldwide, not on this list. So if QKD is so wonderful and could protect your data forever, so why isn't it widely adopted yet? So as we see it, there are three main challenges. The first one is security, and I don't mean the security of the QKD protocols, but I mean the security of the whole solution. As of today, not all telcos trust the QKD vendors to supply a sufficient level of security. Usually QKD companies are smaller and with less experience, so the security still needs to be proven over the years. Another challenge is scalability. Having a single QKD link is simple. Having a QKD network and manage a QKD network is quite a challenge. And the last challenge is cost. Today, QKD is just too expensive. It's too expensive to deploy a large-scale network. And even if security is important, well, money is more important. So that's where Heqa comes into place, into the game. So we founded Heqa-Security about 6 years ago in order to face these three challenges. So we develop QKD systems that would have the strongest possible security, which will have enterprise-grade scalability, and already, as of today, has an unmatched affordability. So Heqa-Security is currently among the 5 companies that are globally supplying QKD systems or mature QKD products. We focus on scalability. We focus on not having a single link, but on larger scale network. And today we are trusted by industry giants. We're trusted by a few government organizations worldwide and by leading data center vendors or global cloud providers. Heqa-Security has two products in the market. The first one is a Scepter Link. This is a standard QKD system. It has one transmitter and one receiver, and these transmitter and receiver generate the symmetric encryption keys. So it's a one-use system with all of the optics, post-processing, and an integrated key management system. As of today, regarding cost, it has the lowest cost in the QKD market. It provides an unmatched flexibility and scalability and simplicity for installation, and it's also the smallest QKD system on the market. Other competitors offer QKD systems which are, well, from 1U all the way through 3U and even more than that, which makes installation, well, first of all, harder, and second of all, it takes too much rack space. Now, our second and newer product is called the Scepter Duo. This is the first and only solution so far in the market that combines a QKD transmitter and QKD receiver in the same 1U box, the same size as our previous product. So if one wants to have not only a single QKD link, but to connect a few links, let's say to form a ring network, in standard QKD systems, you need to connect with Ethernet cables, the QKD transmitter and QKD receiver in a back-to-back connection in a trusted site. With the Scepter Duo, everything is inside the same box. So the total level of security of the system, of the network, is enhanced. You don't need just more cables that transfer the encryption keys, so the security is higher. You only need one box, which takes only 1U, So also in the rack space is saved, and it's simpler to install and manage one box and not two boxes, which makes the network scalability and management simpler. So the last thing that I want to talk about is standardization, which is the reason that most of you are here, I guess. So the way that we see it, standardization has got the good, the bad, and the ugly sides. So good, well, standards are good for the industry, no doubt about it. It ensures the quality of the QKD products, it ensures the security of the QKD network, and it also helps adoption. As I mentioned, there is a problem of trust between the QKD vendors and the users. Having standards will solve this issue of security or of trust. Now, the bad part is for the certification organizations. QKD is new, and as I've mentioned, there are quite a few protocols, and each protocol, even though all of these protocols are used to generate symmetric encryption keys, each one of these protocols is a completely different physical system with different physics behind it and different hardware. QKD is new, QKD is complex, and QKD is still evolving. There are some solutions still in the academy, and in a few years it will be in the market, and the certification organization will need to handle it somehow. Now, the ugly part is for us, for the QKD vendors. There are multiple standards for each and every system part and each and every interface between the different system parts. These standards are constantly evolving, and QKD vendors are usually smaller companies with limited resources and limited time. We need to choose whom to follow eventually. So this is just an example for a QKD network. There is standardization, like different standards for the QKD systems, for the links between the QKD systems, for the links that are used to transmit the encryption keys from the QKD system to the key management layer. There are different standardization for the key management layer, and so on and so on. Just a very long list of standards. And this is a non-exhaustive example of these standards. So every system that needs to be installed in a rack somehow, somewhere obviously needs to have like safety certificates, CE, UL, laser safety. There are different common criteria levels that needs to be also that we need also to stand with a different level of FIPS. And other than the standard certification, there is another long list of specific QKD standards. So only for the interface that is used to transfer the keys between the QKD system and the encryptor, I could list here 4 standards, but the list is even longer. The European Telecom Standardization Institute, the ETSI, has 2 standards for it. Cisco has their own standard. You could also use SNMP, and the list is long. There are a few common criteria specific for QKD. There are local projects. There are the Korean standard. ITUT has more than 20 standards for QKD, starting from the QKD system through all of the stages up to the QKD network. And there are more guidelines by ETSI, by the German BSI. So as I said, as QKD vendors, we need to prioritize. So I'm happy to say that Heqa-Security has chosen to take the Korean standardization in our priority. So our QKD system will soon be compatible with the NIS guidelines regarding the issues of cybersecurity, regarding the validation of the QKD protocol, and regarding the QKD system as a whole. Korea is not only writing the standards, but also defining how these standards should be tested, and also help testing the QKD systems for these standards. Again, I'm happy to say that we will start the Corinne certification process soon. And we hope as a QKD vendor that this will allow us not only to expand our operation in Korea, but having an independent organization saying that Heqa's QKD system, that they have these standards, will also help other customers around the world trust us as their QKD vendor. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Livneh.